Obama is in the stack. He's not the first one. In fact, I've gone on the record. I think the next or the first significant arrest, and it's still at the periphery somewhat, is going to be John Brennan. And we'll work our way up the list. I don't actually think, for example, Hillary gets picked up till sometime in the fall. It's always been, in my opinion, going to happen in October, whatever year it happens. And she's a bit further down the list. And then she's not directly the one primarily related to the elections. That's the Russia stuff. And so the election stuff, even beyond the Russia things, the election stuff is the one that affects all of us for the rest of our life, affects the country, affects the whole world. And the Russia hoax was to affect the 2016 election, and then when that didn't work, to affect the first term of President Trump to make him ineffectual. But that was a side topic, as big as it was. It's still a side topic compared to elections, not just in the U.S., but worldwide. The people that we have in the U.S. Testifying before grand juries right now that were harbored outside of the U.S. for almost 5 years, who were involved in the election theft in 2020, and by the way, people that they were working with and trained who were affecting or tried to affect the election in 2024, those people, those experts, those computer people out of Venezuela, by the way, who had moved to Serbia, they have testified and have brought the evidence with them to show that when they did the election interference in 2020, that was only one country. They had actually done 71 countries around the world, besides the U.S., where they had put people into leadership in those countries who weren't the will of the people of those countries. So, well, this cabal is trying to manage the whole world, and they do it in an interrelated way between the leadership of all these countries that they have artificially put into place, falsely put into place, against the will of the local people. Look at the celebrations that were happening in Venezuela after we took out Maduro. In fact, the person who was sent by National Public Radio, NPR, down to Venezuela to document how horrible we are as Americans to have taken over Venezuela. He gets there and he's shocked. Everybody that he tries to talk to is just elated that finally this weight of the Maduro presidency and the Cuban invasion in Venezuela has been lifted. The people are thankful, hopeful, moving forward. So they didn't find what they expected to find there.
It seems to be the people of Iran as well. They seem to be, except for the zealots, they seem to be welcoming us to come in and hoping that we'll give them a chance to have a regime change. Or you take it and go wherever you want to go?
Well, again, Iran, fastest growing Christian population in the world, very, very, very tied to Israel internally. Remember, that's the land of Esther in the Bible. And so, they had 30,000 at a minimum, maybe as many as 60 or 70,000 people killed there in the last 3 months because of this regime. So with that in mind, they were very, very thankful for what's happened with America and Israel going in there and dealing with the hijackers, if you will. President Trump's larger plan is to stop this globalist cabal from being able to take us off point as we move closer and closer to home. We're spiraling in to hone in on the core of the problem here for America by eliminating these threats in other places, eliminating their monetary funding. You know, we started here in the U.S. with President Trump, if you remember, in the first days and weeks after he became president again last year, with defunding USAID, which was part of the money tree that was funding these very un-American activities and people all over the world. Even, you know, I just mentioned National Public Radio, defunding them because they're very anti-America. It's the craziest thing. We're funding, you know, people that are un-American in the way that they present subject matter media. And
I hope I don't take you off cue, but the same thing just happened in Italy as we were talking with the show. They're basically making moves to defund the mosque and to basically limit the involvement of radicalized Iranians in Italy. So that's happening there as well. So anyway, take it back to you. I'll be quiet.
Well, the largest Iranian embassy in the world is in Italy. Think about that. Here you got the Vatican there. You got, you know, the world's Catholic population focused on the Vatican, and then you have the largest outpost of the Iranian Islam operation, right? A lily pad for the radical Islam into the rest of the world. And by the way, just so that everybody here is clear, remember all those billions of dollars that were sent to Iran during the Obama administration? Then,
absolutely.
Where did that money go? The money went up to Ukraine. Then it did a wild turn. It came down to the Vatican banks and out into the banking system around the world. Literally. Now, how's that happen? And by the way, let me just slow down here for a second and go somewhere else in that same vein.
Okay.
One of the most bizarre things that's been going on within the Catholic Church is the alignment of sects within the church with Islamic operations and organizations. So, for example, in Lebanon, we would get supplies into church organizations in Lebanon, and they would get steadily diverted. 90% would go to Islamic communities and operations, and not to church communities. And the priests that were involved, many of them were just so frustrated because there was another faction within the church representation that was good with diverting these things places. So the problem is that Italy is very divided because you've got radical Islam with Iran, who's been leading the radical Islam movement across the planet. You know, everywhere that we've got terrorist problems in the world, for the most part, the core has been in many ways. So the worst, in my opinion, is almost invisible here in the West, and that has been the Congo. While Iran has been involved in there with China in the Congo with the mining and everything else, you've got 20 million people dead in the Congo since 1979, related to, much of it related to Iran's presence. And by the way, Iran deeply involved with South Africa in their politics and their military. You know, South Africa had enough material for 6 nuclear bombs when they got captured by this radical crowd. And people forget that they were on the way to having nukes. And even over the last many months, all of last year, Ramaphosa, the president of South Africa, has been working with Iran, doing military maneuvers, etc., moving closer to Iran. So, that's on President Trump's list, by the way. Ramaphosa is the one where Trump, literally pants him in the Oval Office, showed the videos.
I saw that. Very cool.
The white farmers being attacked and killed there in South Africa. And by the way, in 2018 and 19, the people that are stealing the elections using the electronics and the Chinese printed ballots, etc., that crowd had to move out of Venezuela because they needed a different lily pad to work from. So they went to Serbia. The building they were working from in Serbia was part owned by John Brennan. They built a server farm in there, and with the wealthiest man in Serbia. And they got this new building, this new location to manipulate elections all over the world put together. What was the first election that they had in order to test this system at that location? Because 2020 was coming. They had to test the system, make sure everything was working right. They tested it on South Africa, on the elections in South Africa. And so that was in 2019. And then in 2020, the American election was President Trump. So, and that was all done out of Serbia. And Iran was right in there in much of what occurred here. So we're, getting Iran off the charts is a big deal for interference. By the way, the other thing that happened on Saturday, Iran had a huge facility where they were manipulating, propagandizing into the internet all sorts of false stories, earning money on, all sorts of falsity in there, trying to affect the news feed, if you will. And the way that people communicate on social media and things like that with their little racket. That got blown to shreds. And so a lot of mischief in the internet went down radically with the destruction of that facility. So a lot of the false news stories, false reporting like that was being generated there is, you're going to see it's going to go down a tick or two. So
I just want to interject something for our audience. If you're listening to what Juan is saying, I think the takeaway is we're not just looking at the war in Iran, we're looking at the global influence that they have for radicalizing Islam around the entire world. And did you catch South Africa, and did you catch the Democratic Republic of Congo and all the deaths? So radical Islam, we've been fighting them for 1,400 years, and one of the things that they're doing is taking over Europe, and the goal is to take over the United States through birth. They can have four wives, and they have 2 or 3 kids apiece, and they're out birthing Europe and taking it over. And what America is just beginning to do is to basically pass some laws. We just got the first thing done in Texas saying that no Sharia law in the United States. So I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, Juan, but that I think ties into what you were saying. But if not, I don't want to take you off track, so please go ahead.
Well, no, it is, this battle that we have for how we have Western ideas, Western ways of functioning that had worked for a very long time, and there's this hijacking taking place to, we work with people, we try to be accommodating, live and let live and all that. But a lot of what we see has nothing to do with that. It's a militarized version of of an invasion of some sort to damage the way we function. Even the ability to operate, relatively freely as a society, travel, interact, etc. And by the intimidation of potential terrorist acts, etc., then do we do what we have done as Americans? We go hide in our house in our bunkers. President Trump, there's something important that President Trump has asked us to do, which is he's invited Americans to come to Washington, D.C. on May 17th and to rededicate America to God, to God's purposes. It's not just to come and have a rah-rah rally. It has a specific purpose to rededicate America to God. Similar, think of the Mayflower Compact. Before the Pilgrims left the ship with the land in sight where they were going to go to, they did a covenant with God in heaven. This is what we're going to do. This is our objectives. Now, there'd been a Roanoke group that had come and tried to set up a outpost, and it burned out, went away. But they weren't dedicated to God's purposes. In the case of the Mayflower group, they decided that they could not make it, they could not survive, except that God's hand be in it. And so they made a covenant with God. They're the outpost, the establishment that survived. Even the later work with the Founding Fathers and the Constitution and everything else, that came 150 years later, and was building out on aspects of that. But this population, this country, in its form, was a religious outpost, and rededicating America to God. President Trump has been showing pictures of his Bible, that the family Bible, that comes from a minister in Scotland, where they had, his mother was tied to that revival that occurred there, and the work that we're doing here in America is tied to, much of that right now, a reestablishment of the faith. Pretty bold move, asking Americans to come to the National Mall on May 17th, and then it's not just one day. There's 49 days left to 4th of July, including the 4th of July. And that's part of his purpose. And on the 50th day, we start. On the 50th day, we start the rest of the project to rededicate, re-step into the will of God as a nation, not just for America, but for the rest of the world. So I think you look at all the things that President Trump has done and is doing right now, and he just put a bow on it, that this is all part of a bigger picture to refine our foundations. And
you also hinted about have you hinted about Jubilee with what you said about the 7 times 7 is 49? Are you hinting about
Jubilee? So in the scriptures, every 7th year, you let the land go fallow, and you don't work, so you take a day off. It's a week of years, so just like we have a Sunday break, which was the holy day, the Sabbath, then you would have a mineralization and stuff like that to kind of repropagate. You plow your stuff back into the ground, and so you also had to store up grain and food supplies to get you through that rest year, just like you did during the week. seventh, you do these 7 times 7, so you have 7 years where you have a year off over 40 years. Jubilee year, you would take 2 years off in a row. So imagine the prep that you had to do if you weren't going to plow, you weren't going to plant, and this was an agrarian culture. Mm-hmm. You really had to, and you just forage for whatever's left. You let the land rest, not just for 1 year, but 2 years. But in the Jubilee year, also, any property that you had sold, you could redeem in the Jubilee year, and would go back to the original families. And so you didn't really sell your family birthright land. You leased it out for a period of time, and you got it back at that period. So if you had a family member, calamity, disaster, whatever, and the land had to be sold, or if you just felt you could do better letting somebody else run it, great. But it all came back to the original families in that Jubilee year. So even prices for land were modified as you got closer and closer to the Jubilee year. You knew it was going to go back to the original family. The price would never go to outer space because you knew, well, there's only so many more years left, and then it's going to go back. So it kind of kept a cap on prices and things like that. We're coming into some kind of a Jubilee year here with America, and that's what Trump's trying to show. We're in the 250th year. Well, that's 5 times 50. So he in terms of Jubilees, this would be the 5th Jubilee year for America if you wanted to use those kind of terms. And so Trump's kind of looking at it that way, that we're coming into this period where we begin the next era for America, and launching it off in a spirit of prayer and rededication makes sense. It's right. And because we don't survive country if we don't have divine protection, assistance, guidance at this point in time, we will not make it. And I would say this too. President Trump knows just how much more really serious stuff is just ahead for us. And so he's helped people to rethink where they're at, knowing that the worst in many ways may yet be to come. Just ahead of us, worst, or it's the biggest. I don't think that's all true. Really big stuff. So President Trump is getting us in a mind of where this Jubilee season is, in my opinion. But more importantly, we don't have to put it even in religious terms. America's got some serious things still ahead to get us out of this corner that we're in, and we need to come together as a people, understanding the magnitude of the threats that are presented against us, and prayerfully look for divine assistance. Think about it, Larry. We're going to arrest, probably is one of the earliest ones, and I'm saying this based on what's going on with the grand jury testimony right now. We're going to arrest the former head of the Central Intelligence Agency. We have people that have already testified, and we have the documents. You've had Tulsi Gabbard tell you. She said this publicly. We have the stuff showing, the materials showing President Obama's interference with President Trump's first term and attempts to run the country remotely through Joe Biden during the Biden administration. Where do you think the instructions for the auto pen came from? Was Jill Biden signing documents that she signed solely out of her own putting it together? Who was behind that? This is a fairly complex thing. You gotta really think about what I'm saying here. President Trump's going after that. He said all documents signed by the out-of-pen, null and void. If they want to fight him over it and go to court, if Biden comes in and testifies that he was involved in those out-of-pen signings, when we have the communications between Jill Biden and Obama and others, showing what was going on and the fact that Joe Biden was not functional in talking about this stuff. With that in mind, how are you going to, how's that going to affect the mindset of the country when we start taking out very high leadership from these former administrations and throwing them in Gitmo? By the way, the whole Cuban thing, think about this aspect of what's going on with Cuba and working at an arrangement with them. Where is Guantanamo Bay located? It's right there next to Cuba. And we're going to be bringing in criminals, traitors, treasonous traitors from all over the planet, let alone the U.S., to Guantanamo Bay. Having control of Cuba next door and being on base with them isn't the worst thing in the world, because you got China and Russia both running through Cuba. Well, we don't want their listening posts going anymore. We don't want them to be able to be right there to cause drama. So shutting them down in Cuba and making a big deal out of it, that's exactly what Trump's going to do.
Wow. So it's basically a repeat of Venezuela.
It's an extension, because Venezuela was being run by the Cubans, being run by the Chinese and the Russians. And so what Trump is doing is he's going and eliminating all these tentacles that they're like a fibroid growth, cancerous growth across the world, and choking off America. And as soon as we attack one node, it'd pop up somewhere else. You go after Korea and they do something in the Mideast. Go after some in the Mideast, they do something in Ukraine. Do something in Ukraine, try and stop that, erupts in South America. Do something against them in South America, erupts in Africa. And we've been playing this ping pong back and forth and up and down with these globalista, much of it out of the banking operations, out of the City of London, city within the city, against America. And by the way, where did the dossier with all the Russia stuff originate at? Where did it come out of? It came out of the City of London, city within the city. So that's where Stroke and Page, FBI, went to go get it. That's where John McCain's guy went to go get the dossier. So that's that banking cabal and their extensions out across the world, coordination out across the world. So we have to deal with these things other places to come back to justice here in America and get America back into a just state. When there's no justice at the Justice Department, then it's pretty hard to do anything. And Trump's trying to bring us back to where, we commonly talk about it in the patriot community, how there's no justice at the Justice Department. Okay, so you just throw your hands up and say, okay, well, it'll never happen again? Or do you systematically try to go at this and correct the problem? We have to get back to some type of societal justice, true justice in America. And that's a process. And we have to eliminate all these tentacles that are taking us off course, off base. And it's a culture, and it takes time to build out and repair and restore a new culture within these government agencies, etc. So he's paring them back. He said he wants to reduce the number of federal employees by half. Well, why do you think that so many of these federal agencies and groups are so adamant against President Trump? Because he plans on reducing the load, the weight that American people have to carry with all the various government, bundling onto you every last thing that you do. Even though, he talks about he's going to eliminate the IRS. Well, in fact, yesterday I was looking at one of the largest tax filing assistance companies on the planet. And I saw, here's an office. It was a very large office, and it was closed down. There's no sign on it, moved to new location or anything. Well established, been there for probably a decade or more. Nothing about it moved, just closed. Here you're coming into tax filing season, and the windows are all boarded up freshly, and they're out of business. Yeah, because the filing situation on the federal income tax has changed.
Are you hinting about the Internal Revenue Service?
Yeah. Remember, he had the Internal Revenue Service sign pulled down in the front of the building right as he started this presidency. Okay, he's going to make it the External Revenue Service. That's the whole point of the tariffs. And
we're going to take you off track, but you said something else. I want people to get the big picture. So he's talking about reducing the size of the government by 50%, which means that's an unelected bureaucracy. And if you go over to Europe, the nations of Europe are rising up, and they're standing up against Brussels, which is an unelected bureaucracy. And now eight nations within the European Union are standing up against Brussels. So I just want to say to the audience, what Juan is telling you is this is big, very, very big. But back to you, and back to the...
Well, and by the way, Brussels, Belgium, one of the largest, maybe arguably the greatest single hub of pedophilia on planet Earth. With it's just one incident after another of the pedophiles working out of Brussels, out into the world. So I mean that's a hub of pedophilia into the world. So you wonder what's the connection between that and the management, if you will, of European Union and other stuff. There's a club operating. They mutually self-promote to hold control, to keep control over leadership across the world. So that's what we're fighting.
Well, you always seem to be able to put the big picture into focus. So
well, the one thing I wanted to say, Larry, is this. Trump has two things that are at the core of everything he wants to do. Number one is honest elections. You actually get the people into power that are the ones you're voting for, and then honest money. And so that's the other huge battle that is going on right now, Treasury versus Federal Reserve. And you see it with the banks and their alignments into the metals and silver and gold and things like that. So there's a huge push taking place within the administration, moving us back to a metals-backed economy and getting mining going here in America for our own silver and gold. Vice President Vance is leading that charge. In fact, I have meetings when we're in Vegas on other stuff. I have other meetings related to mining that have been built around that, and so I've got people coming into town before and after on some of those issues. And we're going to go back to a metals-backed currency. That's so honest elections, honest money, and they are very tied together. Much of the mischief going on across the world is with this false fiat money and the ability to fund different things to which are really un-American, things that aren't even approved by Congress or the American people. And that's part of the reason why we're having this bond conference. It's not open to the public, it's private. But to look at how we've been taken off course with these bond issues and the money being spent there, it's unbelievable once you get into this, just how hijacked the American economy, the world's economy, is in the bond market. And it's coming. It will be many, many, many times worse than what happened in 2008. And the question is, what are the proper ways that we can address it before it gets here? The worst of it really starts 2028, 2029. But if you don't get there early, then it's just like 2008. If you remember, it came to such a head in 2008 that President Bush came to the podium and said, they had taken action in the banking markets to save the planet, that if they hadn't acted immediately, within 24 hours, the world's banking system would have ceased to function, and we'd have gone into some kind of a dark age, because the system would have come off the rails so severely. You wouldn't be able to use your credit card to go buy gas. Nobody'd trust the money for you to buy groceries at the grocery store. Businesses wouldn't be able to pay their employees. The country would come to a grinding halt almost immediately. You could have had an alien invasion from outer space, and it would have been probably less impactful than what was being forecast. Was it an accident? No, it was engineered to happen, and then that became the excuse for this refunding of the entire global monetary system with massive amounts of money printed from out of nowhere. What's coming in this bond crisis is many, many, many times worse. And it's not an accident. It's dialed in at a fundamental level, core level, of school bonds, municipal bonds, road bonds, fire district bonds, etc. And the way that they've been managed, it's going to be monstrous, and it's criminal. It's all criminal all through it. So how best to address it while we still have some runway left, as opposed to have something dire that's bigger than 2008 was, and there's no fix, and we go off the rails. We could get distracted on elections. We could get distracted on even honest money. But if you don't address this bond crisis, then we hit the wall in other ways from a cabal globalist standpoint. So we have to get ahead of it.
Are you saying anything about how we avert that, or is that something that you don't want to discuss?
Well, I think that's part of even this conclave. To say that anybody has a perfect answer is wrong. And it's a lot of different threads involved here. There's a whole fabric of a bond crisis. Jamie Dimon over at Chase, he said that the crisis is coming. He doesn't know if it's 6 months or 5 years, but it's going to be a total meltdown, a crisis when it happens. I'm abbreviating it there. But lots of people are now recognizing what's out there. We could have tremendous success here with President Trump in a lot of areas. We don't address this, it becomes almost moot. So there is some things that are in play. President Trump's very aware of it. And to try and address this. And but I think there has to be broader public knowledge and then public involvement, including all the politicians running for office. You can't stick your head in the sand and think that this will resolve itself later on somebody else's watch. You need every second right now to get ahead of this before it's a total meltdown disaster for the country and for the world. So, anyway, I've got to fly here shortly. The one things that I do want people to be thinking about, being there at the National Mall on May 17th, which President Trump has asked for, 49 days before the big July 4th celebrations of America's 250th year since the signing of the Constitution. I think that's an important thing. And that everybody should prayerfully consider, being involved, showing up. We had something arguably well over 1 million, nearing 2 million people who were present on January 6th of 2021. And present to be accounted for. We didn't go there to riot. We didn't go there to do an insurrection. We went there to be present, to make sure that Congress knew that we were concerned about what was going on, validating, certifying an election that had all sorts of problems. They went ahead and did it anyway. Now you're about to find out, and President Trump's asked us to come be present prayerfully, because the revelations of what has happened within the elections is going to shake the country to the core. You had foreign interference and active war by China and other countries, and intelligence agencies and private money individuals that attacked America to put somebody into office, in the highest office in the land, most powerful office in the world, through falsity, through a fraudulent election. The fallout from that is going to be absolutely stunning. We've been called to prayer prior to and during which time a lot of these things have to be addressed. And so we don't address it just militaristically. We don't address it just politically. We don't address it, with coming off the rails as a people. We prayerfully come back, go to our roots, and look how to get the country back on track again, prayerfully, after we've been attacked. And that's what Trump is doing. He's eliminating their ability to attack us in the meantime while we get in a position. Think of any sports star, any runner, and before the contest begins, you'll kind of get set. If you're in the boxing ring, even if it's, 5th, 8th, 10th round, you get out there and you get into a position and you re-engage. And you don't just walk out there casually. You go out in the stance ready to fight. We've got the whole world on the line. It's not just America that's on the line. 71 countries plus the United States had their elections stolen from them. And by the way, it's an interesting thing in finance. We have something called the rule of 72, where something doubles in cost based on interest with the rule of 72 if you use a 10% interest rate. And so it's interesting that this accounting, this moment where we have to address all these problems, whether it be the bond market or the political market, the elections market, we keep seeing this 72 pop up. So anyway, we're going to address it. Jen has something over at her store with a great backpack thing. It's 517 and Joshua and Caleb pack. So she's got that over there. It's kind of fun. And Thessalonians 5:17. Pray without ceasing. So this 517 is a fun number, and I think people need to prayerfully consider: do you make plans to be there, or to help some other people go that may want to go there representing you? We need to show up as a people, as a nation, to be counted as we come into this next phase, because it's going to be very, very, very difficult for us to get through this. It's not over in a day or a week, it's going to be all over by 5/17. It's all going to be over by 4th of July. No, it's not. We're just getting rolling in resetting America and moving forward. By the way, after the Constitution was signed by the Founding Fathers, they actually signed it July 3rd of 1776, and then it was officially put in place on the 4th, and that became the official day. But the fight, the Revolutionary War with England, continued on for almost a decade afterwards, and in earnest. And much of what we're fighting right now is still with the Brits, with England, with the bank in the city of London. And so we're having a second revolutionary war to throw off these groups that are trying to control America externally with their hidden hands, and to remove that yoke from our necks. And that's what Trump's doing. So.
And a quick comment before I have to let you go. We put your contact information up on the screen so everybody knows how to get a hold of your merchandise and your website. It's all up there, jennifermack.com. So I want to close on, I love the way you always bring in the Bible, and I want to pick up on what you said about that. Basically, prayer works. So I want to give you a little bit of history and then have you comment on it, and we'll sign you off. America absolutely is dedicated to God, and we're a chosen nation with a destiny. So I want to take you to Dunkirk. We had 340,000 troops that were backed up, and Churchill called the people to prayer, and the sea calmed, fog came in, and we rescued with little bitty boats from individuals, 340,000 people who basically lived to fight again, and we won that war. And then you go way, way back, and you go to the miracle of the calm sea, where the Spanish were ready to decimate England, and a hurricane came up, and after the admiral had cut off their anchors so that they could maneuver, and this whole famous fleet was destroyed. And then you go, there's multiple events where God has ordained America. There was the instance of the calm sea, that was Dunkirk, and then there was the miracle where we cracked the German code that had 100 million chance of being cracked, and that allows us to go on and win the war. And like you said, we were dedicated to America at the first landing. We were dedicated to America when the Pilgrim came, and we're dedicated to America again. And I believe that, for my part, Donald Trump was chosen for this time to lead America back into its destiny. So with that, I don't know if you want to close this with prayer or if you have something else, but I just wanted to reiterate on what you were saying. God's hand is in this, and we need to bend the knee, and anybody who can get to Washington needs to go. So comments before you sign off?
Yeah, President Trump definitely feels the weight of this moment. Calling the country to prayer is in part to spread the load, if you will. It's not all on him. He said right at the outset of this administration, inauguration day, in his opening speech, he said, he believes he's here as an act of God to save his life. And so he feels that weight on him, but it's also all of us. That shot wasn't fired just at Trump, it was fired at all the rest of us. What would our country look like right now if President Trump had died there in Butler? What would have happened? What wouldn't have happened? Okay, it's actually scary to put it in those kind of terms with all the momentum going the way it was. And then it's a very individual thing. When persons have a near-death experience and they get to come back, you could be in a crowd, you could be multiple people all affected, losing your life in this world at the same time. It becomes very individual what happens next. America is about to go through a near-death experience of a type, in my opinion. And it's very personal. Your family, your work, your finances, retirement, all sorts of things. At the end of the day, it's going to be a very personal thing. So this rededication of America is also very personal. Making a recommitment before God concerning your life and your place within society, your family, and like that, is not wrong. And doing it, as a assembly is not wrong either. And so there's a spirit that comes in. That's why there's that period of prayer up to July 4th, that intervening period. It's not just a day, it's a season. while we address these issues and rededicate America to God's purposes, which includes not just that we be free, but we go out and assist those across the world that were enslaved in this same corrupt election system and monetary system. Honest elections, honest money, and divine purposes, God's way, God's will. So let me say a quick prayer. Father God, I thank you for everybody here in this audience. I ask you to speak with each one of us individually concerning your will, your way for our individual lives, and then our families and our purposes in the world. We rededicate ourselves to what you want done in this world and with our lives that you gave us, and we offer them back to you for your purposes to accomplish your will in the world. We recognize the fragility of our life in this world, our bodies, and all the things that we have, and how quickly and instantaneously even they can be dismantled and taken. And so we ask you to protect ourselves so that we can be able to be present to help those around us, our family and friends, and our nation as a whole. We don't ask individually just for ourselves, except that we be able to be tools in your hand, Father God. And we accept your will, your way. Though you slay us, we will trust you, because you're able to raise even from the dead. And if our country is at a death moment, a near-death experience of some type, we trust that you can bring us back new, changed, refreshed, and a rededication of purpose, individually and as a nation, to do beautiful things, to see constructive, beautiful things done, not evil, with our life energy that you gave us. We ask all this in Jesus' name, by the blood of Christ, make it so. Amen.
Juan, thank you. You're a profound voice, I think, that was brought into this world for exactly this moment in time. So I just have one closing comment to make in terms of what you said.
Yeah.
Join God's army. Go to that event. Pray. We're not going to go through this and come out on the other side unless we Americans have a change of heart and we surrender to God. That's what this is all about. This is about God's kingdom being brought down on this planet right now. And I think Juan laid out a beautiful, big picture for you. I hope this audience has really benefited from listening to you today. And I want to thank you tremendously for coming on and sharing this with us.
Well, it's kind of a personal thing, even just to be counted. You want to be present when a sports team, it all comes to a head, and it's like the Super Bowl or something like that. And you want to be there, a big event. And it's fun to actually be there in person. It's not quite the same thing as watching on the tube or whatever, but it's being a place where other people are present, a party. And there's something when you're in a larger assemblage to close ranks, be together, that camaraderie, etc. We're in a fight. It's a big one, and the president's asked for some backup. Let's be there. You guys can ride shotgun. Let's go take the world back and get it going in the right direction. Stop these evil people, these monsters that through things like Epstein and 1,000 other projects like that have hijacked with their little secret handshake groups and buddy systems the way the world works. Let's take it back, support the president as he's doing it, and look to God for divine guidance, direction, support, supply, everything we need.